right, welcome to Masters of Real Estate. My name is Mathew Owens. I'm a California licensed CPA and full-time real estate investor. And today I have a very big treat for you guys. A really good friend of mine, Brad Chandler, on the line here that is actually going to be talking quite a bit about mindset and the ways that entrepreneurs have to deal with challenges in their life and what drives them, and a lot of the negative attributes that we have and how we get through these things, which is one of the hardest pieces of, being an entrepreneur or just living life in general, is having that general mindset of, being positive, loving life, and, really living in the moment. I've had so many challenges and tribulations myself with keeping the right mindset, getting through challenging times, and understanding what the heck drives me to just constantly push and push and push. And Brad has helped me in so many ways. It's unbelievable. So thank you so much, Brad, for coming on the video with me and the call with me. I'm super excited about this topic because I know you've helped me in so many ways, and you help entrepreneurs across the board with their mindset, with the challenges from their youth and getting through those things. And I know you have your unique journey as well. Can you talk a little bit about, your previous experience, and I'll say previous life, and, your current life and what you're doing now, man?
Yeah, man, you're welcome for all that, and I'm so glad to be here. I can talk about this stuff all day, every day. So buckle up. It's gonna be a great ride here. So
Nice.
I read a book when I was in ninth grade on how to buy real estate with no money down, and in late 2002, I decided I was going to do real estate investing, and it took me 8 long months to find my first deal. I wish I had a coach like you because
Ouch.
it wouldn't have taken 8 months. I mean, I worked my butt off, full-time job. I'd come home and put my newborn son to bed at 8. I'd spend a couple hours with him, put him to bed at 8, and then I'd work from 8 to 11 every single night, weekends. I mean, it was really tough work,
That's
but
tough.
I kept getting more and more just resolute that if other people can do it, I can do it.
Right.
So I turned that into a good company, right? We've bought, fixed, and sold over 4,000 houses in the last
Wow.
20 years.
It's
And I'm at a
awesome.
great point now where I only work an hour a week in that business. And the reason I only work an hour a week in that business is about a year and a half ago, I was trying to get my son help for his anxiety, and I was working with a performance coach. And she's like, you likely have some unresolved childhood trauma that's affecting your life and your relationships and your son's anxiety. And I'm like, well, I don't have anything to do with this. And in hindsight of everything I've learned, I do have something to do with it. So tip number one, if you have a child with behavioral problems, acting up, depression, anxiety, ADHD, and you want to know where it's coming from, grab your spouse, walk her in the bathroom or him in the bathroom, and look right in the mirror. And that's where the issues with your kids will be coming from 98% of the time. So yeah, I went to
Interesting.
get my
Yeah.
son help for anxiety, and I absolutely had unresolved childhood trauma that for 47 years of my life ruled me, and I really didn't know it, and now I know it. So
Yeah, you realize, that there's so much you don't know about yourself subconsciously than what
yeah,
drives you in different ways. I know when we talked, I had a real hard time where I would grind and grind and grind in 14-hour days. In the beginning, I thought, oh, this is just what you have to do as an entrepreneur, and I'm just not pushing hard enough. And the only reason I'm not crazy successful yet is because I haven't, done the things that other people have done, and I know I can do it because they did it. And you have this grind mentality where, hey, you got to work and put in the time, and then it becomes a habit, and then it becomes something that you don't necessarily need to do anymore because you've had some success. And then that's that habit that keeps forming, and you realize how much that takes away from your life. And it's hard to know, why am I doing this? You just think, oh, it's my mindset. I'm just a really hard worker and there's nothing wrong with me, and I think one thing you've really helped me with is taking that step back and saying, what was it about my childhood that made me grind so hard, made it so that I don't say no to things? I'm just like, yeah, I can do that. It's just a matter of, how do I do it, right? How do I get someone else to do it for me? Or even if I would still be doing 90% of it still. And I think you helped me realize, a lot of my own internal issues were from me not realizing subconsciously that I was good enough, right? That I actually could succeed and be happy at the same time and not have to say yes to everything, and realizing that it was me internally that was doing this to myself. And I was in a lot of pain. How do I spend more time with my kids? How do I go through and have that proper work-life balance when I can't turn my brain off? Or I'll say I couldn't turn my brain off previously. So, and you helped me get to a lot of those deeper rooted issues. How did you come to that realization yourself, with regard to, your personal situation, to kind of have those aha moments, to kind of break out of your shell and realize, hey, this is not the right path. This is the better path, and breaking through some of those challenges.
Well, Matt, I mean, you said a couple of amazing things in there that I want to touch upon before I answer that in my
Cool.
path. And that is that very few people who are workaholics have a high self-esteem. And the funny thing is, and I don't think I've ever asked you this, so I'm going to put you on the spot.
No problem.
Did you think you had a high self-esteem before meeting me?
I I felt like I was the strongest person on the planet and had extremely strong, like, self-esteem, where I felt super confident all the time. Had no idea that that was even, an underlying subconscious thing for me. I had no clue. I really thought I was the opposite end of the spectrum.
And guess what? Me too. So for 47 years, I was like, I love myself. I don't care what other people think. I have a high self-esteem, but they were all lies, and they were all based on how I felt about myself, and how I felt about myself was derived from my childhood programming. I had stress that I went through, and my little mind, in order to get me through, said, "This is happening. These bad things are happening to you because you're bad." When a parent doesn't treat a kid right, the kid doesn't stop loving the parent, the kid stops loving themselves. So that was me, but I put up this front that no, I'm successful, I'm financially successful, I've got high self-esteem, I don't care what others think, but it was just a lie. So how did I find that out? Well, looking back, one point before I touch on this is I got into business now to make a lot of money. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs get in business to make a lot of money. And they think that making a lot of money is going to bring them happiness and worth. Well, if that were the case, look at the last 20 years on how many high net worth folks have killed themselves through the use of drugs or alcohol, or just straight out suicide on purpose. Like,
Mhm.
if that was the case, they would never do that, right? So
Right.
you can make as much money as you want, but if you have these demons that you and I had that we didn't even know we had
Right.
until they were pointed out. And so back to your question, how did I find this out? I went through this exercise where we went back to my childhood, and we looked at the times where I had stress, I had no control, I had trauma, and we talked about the stories, because when something bad happens to you, you've got to come up with a reason why it's bad, about why it's happening. And our little brains will say, well, it's because you're bad. Well, guess what? If you're bad, then your mind can say, if I can only be good or only be better, then I will be in an okay position. So
Mhm.
when I figured that out, I was like, whoa, I was never not enough. That was the way that my dad portrayed me to be, but that was all about him. It wasn't about me. That's
Mhm.
when everything in my life changed. And I know it's similar for you as well.
Yeah, you realize, you have this grind that you have to fulfill something within you, where you don't realize that it is really that lack of confidence in yourself that pushes you forward to show everyone in the world that you're good enough. And, instead of realizing that you're good enough either way, no matter what. If you're a good person and you're trying your hardest, and, you're good enough without having that, constant need to grind all the time. And I think the reason I came to you initially was because I was in a lot of pain, right? I was constantly wanting to spend more time with my kids, and I was in a lot of pain because of that, because I realized that I wasn't, and I didn't want to be the 80-year-old guy regretting life that I didn't spend enough time with my kids and didn't push forward. And it hurt me to my soul, to where it just, like, it hurt to another level, going, I'm not being there enough for my kids, and realizing, wow, my son is now 8 years old, my daughter is now 5 years old. did I just miss, like when they were really young? Like, oh my goodness, I need to do something immediately. And it was in that painful moment that I said, I need to reach out. Something about me is making it so that I can't turn my brain off when I'm wrestling with them in the living room, or, playing with them outside. I'm still there in my mind thinking about work and not living in the moment and not giving myself permission to live in the moment. And that was one of the big things I think you taught me, was pointing those things out. Why is that happening to me? Why am I not giving myself permission to live in the moment and genuinely be happy, right? So instead of stressing and worrying about everything with work that doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
I remember texting you one day while we were going through the coaching, and I randomly do this with my clients. And I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And you're like, "I just spent the day at someone's house that had a pool," and you said, "I spent the whole day in the pool with my kids playing." I go, "Well, how is that different?" You go, "Oh, I would have spent 15 minutes, and then I would have gotten on the phone and done work." And I'm like, "Yes, I love to
Yeah.
hear that."
Yeah, it's when you can actually live in the moment, that's where true happiness lies in my eyes. And
Yes.
you have to give yourself permission to do that and take that break, and meditate. One of the things that I think you helped me with a lot was the proper use of meditation in the mornings and at nights, and listening to those things on repeat to set your mind right for the day, because a lot of it is environmental and setting yourself up from the start of the day and then going to sleep with that same mindset. Has that helped? How has that helped you and helped some of your other clients with regard to the meditation aspect of this? And what are some of the deeper things you get into when you're talking with clients and some of the challenges they have as entrepreneurs that you see out there?
Yeah, so a big part of my program, as you know, is hypnosis followed by neuroplasticity. And that's just a fancy way of saying it's your brain's natural ability to regrow new neural pathways. So it's critical. I mean, it's absolutely critical. So going back to the stories, at 6 years old, something bad happens and we tell ourselves we're bad. Those ingrain in us for the rest of our lives until we do the work, because our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between yesterday and 30 years ago. So when we figure those out in hypnosis, because your subconscious mind always knows the source of your problems.
Right.
They tell us the source of our problems, and then we figure out the story, and then we tell ourselves the truth. Because if you're suffering right now, you're not living in the truth. If you live in the truth, it's impossible to suffer. So what we do is we ingrain the truth in your mind. So every single day at night, as you're going to sleep, you're listening to this recording over and over again, and you're changing your brain. I literally have clients that I've worked with who have enough money to completely retire. Literally at 50 years old, 60 years old, they completely retire and they work like crazy. And it gets back to what you're saying. They have this belief that they don't even know that I'm not enough. And to them, instead of reaching for a bottle or a joint, they reach for work because that's their way to prove themselves, as you were saying. So
Mhm.
if you're one of those people out there and you're working like crazy, you don't have to work like crazy. People think that it can be a myriad of other things, but it will always come back to your childhood programming and your lack of, usually it's your lack of how you feel about yourself, not being enough.
I think a lot of the benefit of what you help people with is not just the realization of that not being enough aspect within your childhood, but the consistent reprogramming of your mindset over and over again with those meditations. People talk about writing your affirmations down in the morning and at night and repeating those things over and over again, reading the right types of books consistently, listening to audio tapes. These are all things that reprogram your mind into, I'll say, an entrepreneur mindset, right? And what you've been taught over time on that aspect. And then you take the same type of reprogramming and reprogram people's minds into being much happier and being able to live in the moment, like you said, and finding out the things that are deep down rooted that they don't even realize was an issue, right? So, and
Yeah, and like you said, most people don't realize it. I had a conversation with someone this morning. The person is separated from his wife. He confided in me that he is with another woman, even though he's not legally divorced, and that he has been cheating on his wife for 8 years. And then he's like, well, my childhood wasn't that bad. And I think you said the same thing when I asked you, oh, my childhood wasn't that bad. And it's not about me trying to like poo-poo on your parents. It's actually just the opposite. But let me tell you about what he said about his childhood. He goes, yeah, my mom and dad were immigrants. They came here. He was like, they worked all the time. They were gone all the time. And so they put me with my grandmother, and I couldn't communicate with her because of a language barrier. And I was like, dude, you told me everything that you need to tell me that explains your entire life. Is your behavior the proper thing? No, but there's an explanation for it. What do you think that little 6-year-old boy is saying when his parents are at work? He said, well, I probably said, well, they need to make a living. I go, no, at 6 years old, you cannot, your brain isn't advanced enough to say that. Do you know what your brain's really saying? Why isn't my mom and dad here? They don't like me. Something's wrong with me. That's what you're telling yourself. So he was like, just like everyone else says, I wasn't beat, I wasn't raped, I wasn't put in a cage, but you don't have to have those things happen. You didn't have those things happen to you. I didn't have those things happen to me, but our lives were completely controlled because our needs were unmet. So if you're sitting here and you're like, hey, I love myself, I have a lot of self-esteem, I work a lot because I love my job, maybe you do. But I developed this self-love quiz that takes like 3 minutes and it's 12 questions. And I wish I would have been able to take it 5 years ago and see just where I sat. But if you take this quiz at bradchandler.com/quiz, it will tell you what your level of self-esteem is. Do you have extreme self-love, mild self-love, or lack of self-love? If you have extreme self-love, I bet you your relationships, your health, your business, everything is probably humming. If you have one of those lower two levels, I bet you have struggles. The beautiful thing is, don't look at that and say, oh, woe is me, I don't have self-love or lack of. Think of it just the opposite. Oh my gosh, my life can change so profoundly now, as yours and mine have done, Matt, right?
Right. I think it's really, really important. You point out the specific relationships in your life that are important to you that, you don't realize what that's done. My dad worked a lot, nonstop, consistently, right? He passed away early when I was 26 years old, and maybe that was an older thing, of course, but it definitely had me, grinding and pushing and, consistently needing to be the leader for the family, right? And same thing with, you pointed out to me, how would your wife say your relationship is with you? And my mindset was, I have a great relationship with my wife. It's amazing, right? And, realizing, taking that step back and saying, actually, she's complaining about me not being there in the moment with her for like the longest time, right? Me not actually like living there with her and being her best friend when I could very well be, as long as I was able to take myself away from this circumstance and put myself in the moment. And some of the things, you taught me to do is actually practice these things on a daily basis. Go out, give my wife a hug, give her a kiss, sit there for 30 minutes and talk with her in detail about our life for that day. Same thing with my kids, is actually reaching out to do everything you can to actually change that behavior on a daily basis. Spend that time with your kids for that extra half an hour where it's direct time with them, where you're having conversations with them, right? But also some of the things where I could take away the trauma away from my own kids, the same way my dad worked like crazy and made me subconsciously work like crazy and not be able to say no. It was I was doing the same thing to my kids, and realizing, oh my goodness, yeah, do I want them to emulate how hard I work? Sometimes, but and have that, work ethic, of course, but not to the degree where it takes away attention from what their direct needs are as a child, and that youth, and giving them the self-esteem. Because as a parent, you want to give your child that self-esteem, to a whole nother level. It's like the most important thing is, how do I make my kids happy? How do I help my kids with that self-esteem? And you don't realize your subconscious is affecting them in a whole nother way. And that is what really brings that pain out, and that, swallowing your own pride type stuff that really gets you to take action yourself, because that pain and that desire to do better really takes it to a whole nother level, especially when you bring your kids into that picture and that pain.
Yeah, your kids weren't asked to be brought into this world. You and your spouse brought them into this world. And the greatest gift that you can give your children is to break the multi-generational curse that most of us are involved in. And how do you do that? You kind of said it, Matt, is you've got to learn how to love yourself unconditionally so that you can teach your kids how to love yourself unconditionally. If I said to you, Matt, can you give me 12 oranges, and you didn't have 12 oranges, could you give them to me? No. So absolutely, that's the greatest gift anyone can ever give their child, is to teach that.
And I think the self-awareness really does help massively in business as well, right? Realizing, hey, here's the lines and here's the limits, helps you to delegate more, helps you and pushes you to stop doing so much and change your business in a way to where you can have that lifestyle with your kids and with your family and the things that are most important to you in your life, and this consciously. Subconsciously is where you got to dive deeper into it. And so, what are some of the things that you're seeing out there that caused people to have, those emotional, blockages as a child, right? I know we talked, at length about my childhood, about my stepfather situation, about, me wanting to, be, I'd say the guiding light and being there for my whole family as well. And me, feeling that sense of responsibility and that grind that I get from my dad. All these things put me emotionally in that situation. What are some of the other things you see other people going through? Is it all similar, or do people, of course, there's bigger traumas that occur, but from a generalized standpoint, from an entrepreneur standpoint, is it all that I'm not enough grinding aspect of things that you see?
So, I mean, such great questions. Our behavior on a daily basis is controlled by 95% is controlled by our subconscious mind. So while we know we had to spend time with our kids, just like you didn't do it because your subconscious mind was ruling your behavior. And that subconscious mind was, I need to do more because I'm not enough. And
Mhm.
when you feel not enough, you always have to do more. It's never enough. Like, there's one of my mentors has literally helped thousands of addicts. And she's like, I've never met one addict that ever thought they were enough. Working too much is an addiction. Smoking pot every day is an addiction. Drinking 3, 4 glasses of wine a night is addiction. All of those point back to I'm not enough. So if you're not enough, you can never be enough. So what I would challenge people to do is to shift this money making to prove myself to impact. How can I make an impact on my clients, my investors, my employees, my kids, my spouse, and focus on impact, impact, impact instead of what I did for most of my life, money to prove my worth. And since I've made that shift, Matt, in the last 2 years, everything has changed. Like, I only work an hour in my real estate business. We're doing great. I'm not focused on money in my coaching business. I'm focused on helping people. And when you focus on helping people and make an impact and make an impact, the money is going to come more than ever you ever thought before. So back to your question on what is it? It all comes to every problem we have comes down to a thinking problem, and our thinking is flawed because we didn't get our needs met as a child. It's simply that. Our parents did the best they could do, but oftentimes they didn't provide what we needed, and we came up with coping mechanisms that were started as thoughts and then evolve into drinking, working, smoking weed, shopping, sex, whatever. The list goes, porn, the list goes on and on and on. But it all usually comes back to three things. And I think I'm not enough is the number one thing by far. I don't belong, and therefore I can't connect, and I'll never be able to get what I want. But I really think the last two are a condition of the first of I'm not enough.
And I think a lot of that is, the I don't belong aspect of things is common in a lot of high value entrepreneurs where their mindset is, push, work hard. I'm going to do better than everybody else and I'm going to push really hard. It's like a competitive type mentality. And a lot of times that, I'm not enough thing is there, but the I don't belong thing is very common and apparent that I've seen as well, where you don't the normal person that goes to a 9 to 5 that doesn't grind, that doesn't think and act on a whole nother level, you feel like you can't connect with a lot of people out there, where it feels lonely at the top as an entrepreneur a lot of times. And a lot of that comes down to your own internal issues, where you taught me quite a bit about, hey, if you are feeling anger towards someone else, or, you're mad at them, or, there's issues you have with other people, it really just comes down to you not expressing love to everyone and not having empathy and not realizing, hey, every time you have an issue with someone else or can't get along with them or don't feel like you have anything in common, it's your own internal issues that are really, really pushing you there. It has nothing to do with them at all, because if you really, really took a step back and looked at every relationship from a love standpoint and said, hey, I'm just going to love unconditionally. I'm not going to have judgment. You have all those judgments because of internal issues within yourself versus outside. So being able to take that step back and look at yourself first is one of the most important things I think you can do for your own happiness and for your own relationship standpoint. And it helps your business massively as well, right? For it takes your business to a whole nother level from an entrepreneur side, and realizing, hey, if you dial these things in emotionally, not only are you going to be 10 times happier, but you're going to make 10 times more money also, because these are all blockages that you don't realize you have that are stopping you from making money, as well as stopping you from enjoying life and enjoying time with your family, right?
Man, I'm so proud of you, dude. The student has become the teacher. I mean, you just articulated that so well. And just to reiterate, if you have a negative feeling or you're judging another human being, it has nothing to do with them. It has all to do with you and the way you feel about yourself. Just as if someone is going to attack you or judge you, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with them. When you can learn those two simple lessons in life, oh my gosh, like everything changes in your world. So right on, man.
That's awesome. Can you talk to everybody about your coaching and what you actually do and the process that goes through that you go through when you are coaching a new person that's interested in getting their mind right and their mindset right, and finding out what those inner demons are inside of them to improve their life as a whole?
Yeah, one of the things I think that really worked well with you as a part of the coaching is the daily emotional tracker that I created. And it's actually a way to process your emotions. So it's all written at the top, and I'll give you the link here in a second on where you can get it. But at the top, at the page, it says just anytime you feel negative emotion, you actually should embrace that and say, hey, this is my body saying I need to do some internal work. And you take a couple deep breaths. So you listen to your breath so you get present, and then you identify the emotion by saying, I am feeling, not I am. I'm not depressed or mad, or you're making me mad, because no one can make you mad. You make your own self mad. I am feeling sad. And then you give yourself compassion for that emotion, because so much of us didn't have someone that gave us compassion as a child. And then you try to figure out where it came from. And it's going to be hard sometimes to figure out where it came from until you do this subconscious work, but it always comes from the way someone made you feel as a child. And then final thing is you ask, is the thought that started all this, is it true or not? And if it's not true, which it probably never is, then you can kick right back out to that joyous state. So that's one of the things that we do. And you can get that at bradchandler.com/tracker for free. But it's a 5-week program, one-on-one with me for the time being. And we have group component where we meet once a week in a group setting. And we go over things just like this, like processing emotions. But it's identifying the source of the pain, figuring out how that pain is affecting in your life, what it looks like in your life without that pain and without that struggle. So we kind of write the perfect life. Then we go into hypnosis session where your subconscious brain will go back to the scenes in your childhood that are cause of the issue today, whatever it is, working too much, smoking too much, shitty relationship, anxiety, depression, and we figure out the stories. And then I make a recording that you listen to at night, and it reprograms your brain. And then finally, I give you a formula to, I get you out of the invisible prison from your childhood. I give you the key, which to your cell, which actually opens from the inside. You just didn't know it. And then I give you a key to the main cell, and I teach you how to walk out of that prison and never come back, because some people will leave prison and come back. So the final week of the coaching is just teaching you how to never come back. And then, this is a lifelong journey. So I think you and me made this massive leap. And if you can see my hands, I'm moving them. Like if it's a foot out, you go from a foot to maybe an inch. So we have this inch, this little gap that we have to work on the rest of our lives. This is a lifelong thing, right? Mm-hmm. But guess what? You're finding this, hopefully. This little inch gap that we're trying to close is so beautiful because we're free. We're free. Now, can we get better? Of course we can. I'm on a mission, Matt, to get to the point in my life where no person or no situation can negatively affect me or super positively affect me. And if you think that's crazy, I thought it was crazy too when my friend, the ex-Navy SEAL, told me this. And now I'm getting closer and closer to that. You can live the same life. You don't have to live in a triggered, pissed off state. You never have to be triggered or pissed off. I am rarely ever triggered or pissed off.
I think those key tools that you talked about were massive for me, and realizing, hey, listening to those meditations first thing in the morning, listening to them each night help you to, train your mind to think in a different way. And the daily emotional tracker was massive for me, just the little things. Hey, I'm mad at my wife about this, but realizing I'm mad because she's not acting in the way that I perceived that she needed
Yes.
to act in a certain way, and taking that step back and saying, I'm mad about this, really puts things in perspective, because it makes you literally step out of that emotional reaction and say, well, this is stupid. I'm just making myself mad about this for no reason. Now, let me actually have the emotional courage to go talk to my wife from a state of love instead of a state of anger, right? And being able to address those things is huge, right? And so I
Oh,
think that on a daily basis, catching myself, taking a step, it makes you take that step back and saying, I was mad at my kids and I yelled at my kids because they wouldn't be quiet for a minute and I just needed 5 minutes to myself. But it's not possible for kids to be quiet. They have too much energy, right? So taking that step back and saying, okay, like I can deal with this now. And also cutting yourself a break, because everybody will have those emotional stopping points and those emotional reactions, even within that really close, inch away from success standpoint. You have to take that step back and say, it's okay. I'm allowed to have an emotional reaction sometimes. I'm human, but how can
yes.
I limit that and turn it into something of love, and be able to make it so that I'm not mad the entire day at my wife over something stupid, that I can actually take myself out of that situation emotionally and be in a much better position. You know what I mean? So I think those are the things that I think were really, really key, that the tools that you gave me to long term set myself up for success. And so it's been absolutely amazing. Brad, if people want to reach out to you to get involved with your program or learn more about how they can be happier in their life, and dial some of these things in, how can they do that?
Yeah, bradchandler.com, or you can go to bradchandler.com/contact. I do a daily message on all the social media platforms, or almost daily, about freedom and happiness. And Matt, what you said earlier, the argument that you have or anyone has with their spouse, it never has to do with the argument. It has nothing to do with what's going on. It's your brain actually doing its job to help you survive. It's going back to a time where someone made you feel a certain way, and
Right.
you're pulling that into the present argument. So if you do nothing else from this talk but download the tracker and start using that, you're going to see monumental shifts in your relationship, because you're going to realize no one can piss you off. When you have a bad feeling inside, it is 100% to do with you and how you feel inside, based on something that happened to you in the past. And when you start to realize that, conflict in a relationship can actually is a way to come together. In my previous marriages, and I've had two marriages that didn't work out, conflict was like boom, it was like this explosion. Right now I'm in a relationship, a very healthy relationship, and when we have conflict, it actually brings us together, because the problem in a relationship is never the actual relationship. It's always the individual's relationship they have with themselves. And now that I feel good about myself and my partner does, when we have conflict, we can actually say, hey, what you just did made me feel this way. It's not your issue, but can we work through it? And then I'm vulnerable and we talk about it, and I heal and she heals, and then we come closer together. So all of this can start by the use of that daily tracker. It really is a powerful tool.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brad. This has been absolutely awesome. I've really, really enjoyed, doing this with you and rehashing, all of the experience that I've had with you. And it's been absolutely amazing. I really highly recommend your program to everybody out there. Everyone has these issues that they don't realize that they have in different ways, and, on different levels. And it really, really changed my mindset to be a much more happier person, to be able to live in the moment more. I'm planning a 2-week camping trip with my kids now as well. I'm doing all different types of stuff. I'm coaching my kids' basketball team now, doing all that kind of stuff. And those are the important things, right? If you look back when you're a child, the most happiest moments of your life are, going to the beach with your parents, or, getting coached by my dad. Coached me all the time as a kid. And, those little things, those are the things that really matter in life, to yourself as well as your kids. And you don't want to miss those. And so I highly recommend your program to everybody out there. It's been absolutely instrumental in my happiness. And so I'm excited to be able to bring this to everybody else and share this with everybody. So thanks so much. And if anybody wants to reach out, what's the website again?
bradchandler.com. Yeah, guys, if you're suffering, life isn't about suffering. You don't have to suffer a minute more. And this isn't about decades of counseling like I went through. I've created through, working under some of the best people in the world in this field, a proven model that literally between like 3 and 5 hours of working with me, my clients have massive shifts. So life is about relationships. It's about love. It's about being joyous. And if you don't have those things in your life, and you're suffering, you don't need to. You don't need, and if whether it's me or someone else, just go get help and know that life can be really freaking amazing when you learn to live in the truth that you are enough.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the time today. Do you want to learn how to create financial freedom in your life through real estate and take your investing business to the next level? If so, you can follow us in one of the following ways. First, you can take one of our free webinars on how to analyze property, how to raise capital for real estate, and how to market and find deals. 3 of the key pillars to becoming a successful real estate investor. Number 2, you can join us on our mailing list where you'll get tips and tricks on real estate investing directly to your inbox. And number 3, you can take our 6-month real estate course that teaches you every aspect of real estate investing you can think of, and more importantly, create financial freedom in your life through real estate investing strategies that I teach. If you want a master's in real estate in 6 months, this course is for you. We're going to go over how to raise money, promissory notes, syndications, fixing and flipping, buy and hold investing, tax and legal structures, self-directed retirement accounts, financial education, how to run a business, how to market and find your deals, and most importantly, how to create that financial freedom in your life so that you can stop trading your time for money and create passive real estate cash flow that you can live off of. If you're interested, go ahead and click on one of the links below, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the other side.